All right, we are live. We'll just give it a second to kick in on LinkedIn. And good morning. We got another great edition of Account Based Friday. And joining us from South Carolina, Jill Rowley. Jill has been an investor in Stage 2 Capital and is advising a number of startup companies. Super excited. Jill and I met when my hair was jet black. So that's how long ago that was. And in fact, the company that we met at, that you were kind of selling us on the vision, we had pivoted to ecosystems, which is our topic for today. So I'm really excited to talk more about ecosystems. But each week we start off with a poll, and let's bring up this week's poll here. And has nothing to do with ecosystems, but does have to do with kind of the buyer's journey and what's happening here. And the question that I was asking was the gated versus ungated. It's a bit of a religion conversation. A number of people are talking about not gating. Some people are talking about fully gating. So I figured I'd ask the people here, and we got a quantity of 30 people that voted. So a pretty decent sample size here. And it's really difficult to get to the nuances of this question because LinkedIn kind of limits what you can put and what you can't put. But I'm starting to see a trend of people just having email as an email address as the one field to populate a form. And then they're still gating their long form assets or their hero assets and contact us and demo now. I was trying to get to how many people were doing that versus not doing that, but I couldn't really ask that as pointedly as I did here with the other options. So it seems like it's split about half and half. Half are saying, hey, ungate as much as possible. The other half are still continuing to gate. The challenge that I see is when you ungate, you lose the measurability of that asset, or you can lose the measurability. But I don't know, Megan, what was your point of view on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely understand the argument for ungating as much as possible. It's sort of the one of my favorite old lines is information wants to be free, and it's true. People want to get what they want to get, and they will be happier to access it if you don't ask them for a whole bunch of information before they can get what they need. So there's a strong argument for that. And actually, Nick Panay at Amelia, who's long been just an amazing marketing leader, he had a really interesting post on LinkedIn about how he tested the results of ungating, and it performed wildly better than what they had with gates in place. And that's a really interesting argument to say, it does work and you can test it. That said, I also think a change that's allowing this to happen is companies moving away from marketing leaders, I should say, being able to move away from the MQL as the end all measure of their contribution to the business. Yes, Jill, I see you applauding. That's a huge change. And that's one that when we allow marketing to show influence and not just the sourcing of net new leads, which is kind of crazy, especially in account-based environments, you then open up possibilities for more customer-centric engagement and better ways to get things to people so that they find you and you're not kind of pulling them in, kicking and screaming to get an asset. So anyway, all that is to say, ungating as much as possible, clearly an opportunity, but it is going to take some time.
I also just one thing to add, I think they're more willing to share the content if they know that it's not gated, right? You don't want to share with another CMO and the CMO is going to go and have to download, fill out a form. Yeah. So I think the shareability of the content becomes greater by ungating.
Definitely. Well, and judging effectiveness by traffic, right? Are more people looking at this? That's what you want. You want people to be interested in what you have to say and what they can learn from you. So, and I know, Jill, that has long been a mantra for you of be helpful, help people know what they need to know, help them be successful. And I think that's what's really led to a lot of your success. But I'm interested to start out. Our topic today is ecosystems, and while that's a big word for a lot of people, it might not be something everyone knows about. So maybe we could start our conversation today with you just sharing what is your definition of an ecosystem and why is it so important right now?
Yeah, great question. And my answer isn't the answer that everybody has, right? There's all sorts of different definitions of ecosystem, but broadly, ecosystem is everything that surrounds your customer. So the customer is still very much at the center of the point of view of an ecosystem. And in fact, I think about, what is your customer's ecosystem? What is your prospective customer's ecosystem, right? It is who's in their tech stack, right? What other products do they use in their tech stack? Who are the consultants and agencies that they already work with? Who are the analysts and subject matter experts that they learn from? So these partners, they can be tech providers, they can be consulting, they can be alliances. So there's partnerships, and then there's community, right? The move to community-led growth. We trust our peers, and we trust our peers more than we trust the brand or the vendor, and so we're seeing people wanting to connect with people like them. And we've seen this for a long time, but the brand is starting to recognize that if they can connect community members, peers to each other, then they have a broader, sorry, I've got the cleaning crew working today. So anyways, they're now behind the door. So it's partnerships. Those are companies that you partner with. Communities, those are people. And then I also add marketplaces, because it's about, where are your buyers showing up? Where do they want to actually make purchases? And so you as a company want to be part of the community and part of the marketplaces where your buyers are showing up.
Yeah, it's a great point about the different flavors there of the ecosystem and partners and the whole nine yards. And trying to think of, you kind of reinvented yourself here as, in my mind, of being a professional sales leader at Eloqua, Marketo, and then now in the venture world. How does the venture world think of partners in terms of CAC or customer acquisition? Like, is it more attractive to an investor, therefore a CEO, therefore a CMO? Like, do things trickle down from a partner perspective, or are people saying, yeah, kind of shy away from partners and go more direct? Like, what are you seeing there from a VC perspective?
I love the question, because that's where it really all begins, right? If the VCs are making investments in startups based on whether that startup has community, whether they have a partner strategy, whether they're building and being part of ecosystems, that's when we really start to see shifts in the market. Also, when the board decks start to change, right? And when the people in the C-suite are, if you've got your chief partner officer, your chief ecosystem officer, and they're at the same strategic level as your CMO, your head of sales, your head of success, and they're reporting to the CEO, you're starting to see this happen. And from an investor perspective, Sarah at A16Z, at Andreessen Horowitz, she's on record saying, if they're looking at two companies that they're considering investing in, and one is tripling in growth year over year with 100% direct pipeline, and the other is only doubling year over year, but 50% of their pipeline is indirect and 50% is direct, they're more likely to invest in the company that has a better pipeline, that is higher velocity, because the data's out there now, which is, I love, like, I'm all into the data. The data shows that when partners are involved in your opportunities, they close, the velocity is faster, they're converting at higher rates, the deal sizes are bigger, and the really important aspect is that the stickiness, the retention, and the expansion of that customer when you're partnering is greater. And so we see VCs making investment decisions based on direct, indirect, and the mix that the company it has.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because if you've got a stronger foundation, even if one's growing faster, it may have a shakier foundation. And I think that's a really interesting way to look at, what is the health of this deal for the, sort of 3 to 5 year investment horizon versus what looks good right now. Super interesting. Well, and I'm curious to, as you think about businesses who want to do a better job with creating an ecosystem or tapping into an existing ecosystem, what are some of the first steps that you would encourage them to take? And who inside the organization, like what are some organizational changes that need to happen in order to support this ecosystem mindset?
Yeah, it's a lot of change, right? And the first step is to make sure that that this is strategic, right? That this is that all of the go-to-market leaders who are peers to partnerships ecosystem, that they all, from a product perspective, right, from a co-innovate on product, you can't start with co-marketing, I don't think. So you start co-marketing two companies together, but if the product doesn't support that joint value story, then you've just marketed something that isn't really strategic and embedded in the product roadmap. If you don't have a good API, right, and maybe an SDK, right, then you're marketing a solution that won't deliver the promise of the value, right? So there has to be, I think of like the partnership leader as the orchestrator of embedding partners into your product discussions and roadmap, embedding partners into your marketing, right, and your co-marketing, embedding partners into your sales organization from a co-sell perspective, embedding partners into customer success, understanding what customers are asking for, the gaps, right, the services that they need to be successful, and the partnership taking this bigger view of influence, of what influences our customers and our future customers, and how do we stitch and weave this partnership ecosystem being part of the community, right? Your product team being part of the community, your marketing team, your sales team, your success team being part of this community. So it is also, like, from a tactical perspective, if your comp plans aren't partner friendly, then your salespeople won't want to partner, right? If they feel like quota attainment is harder and commissions are lower when they co-sell with a partner, you've got to fix that. That's just one tactical thing. I could go on and on, but it starts with a strategic understanding that partnerships isn't a function. It's a stitch and weave orchestrating strategy, part of your go-to-market.
You bring up a lot of great points there, and especially about the compensation of making sure that the reps are compensated accordingly. And I'll share an experience here. Actually, Jill, when we first met back when my hair was jet black, so that's how long ago it was, but it was at a SaaS company, almost in the same kind of economic climate. And I'll share a couple kind of bumps in the road, and I'll be curious, like, what you would suggest or do in these kind of situations. But in that case, the SaaS company, we were pivoting the entire strategy to a channel from direct, and it was a bet the future of the company. And it worked out fine for us. We eventually went public. And this was like 20 years ago. I mean, it was a long time ago. But along that line, we ran into a couple issues. Exactly what you said about the compensation of not only did you have to kind of have that salesperson really focus on the direct side, but you had to make sure that they were equally compensated if an indirect partner was coming in. So the challenge that we ran into is sometimes we ran into competition of direct versus partner. And, how does that make the partner feel when a direct salesperson is going in? That was one challenge. The other challenge was mind share of the partner. So we had a product that we were selling to global carriers at the time, and the global carrier had choices, and we were one of several choices. But how do you kind of break through that noise and make sure? And I liked your idea of embedding the partner in your planning process. I think that was a terrific idea. But that was another issue that we ran into. And let me think of, was there a third issue? Probably the third issue was we realized once we made it through the transition, and this was a company that went through kind of a period of time of getting to cash flow positive and then accelerating. The third issue was that once we became successful, then we doubled down on the direct side. So the indirect became less of an issue. It's like this constant ebb and flow. I don't know, maybe partners are in vogue right now because of the economy, but do they eventually go away? I don't like, and it's a different time now. So those are three obstacles. I don't know if anything comes to mind as I mentioned that, but those were three things that we ran into too many years ago.
Yeah, a ton comes to mind. First off, enablement. Right. That we finally, and I was part of this like shift when Eloqua was acquired by Oracle. I had been an individual quota carrying sales rep for 10 years. A lot of people didn't know that. They thought like I was an evangelist, right? And a lot of people thought I was in marketing because my buyer was marketing and I was obsessed with B2B marketers. And I was part of their community, learning and listening and reading and curating and amplifying marketing stuff. Sales enablement, 2013, there started to be more focus on, instead of hiring a bunch of more reps, how about we make the team more efficient and effective? Right? How do we invest in knowledge transfer? How do we invest in new technology, right? That would better enable the salespeople that we have so we hire less. How do we bridge that gap between product marketing and sales, the translation engine from product marketing to sales? How do we fill that gap? And that sales enablement. We saw communities, we saw analysts, we saw software develop around that. Right? So partner enablement is just as important as sales enablement. And it's a bit like, channel to me is a bad word. It's not a bad word. It's just a historical, it's a legacy. Channel means point of sale. Like, who collects the customer's money? Partnership, ecosystem is point of value. Right? And there's value along that entire value in terms of co-innovating on product, value in terms of co-marketing more better together solutions, value in terms of more high quality, faster converting revenue, value in terms of delivery of actually solutions to the customer. So we've got to shift from point of sale and collection of the customer's dollars to point of value. Right. And orchestrating not just one-on-one partner, vendor, I hate the word, but vendor to partner. Right. But how do we put more of our partners together? Right. How do we create even more stickier value? How do we put multiple tech partners, solutions partners? How do we put it all together? Right. To deliver better value to the customer. Transparency. Right. You've got to bring your partners into the tent. And first off, let's beep back up the truck. ICP overlap, the ideal customer overlap, is so critical in terms of prioritizing partnerships. If you don't sell to the same people, then partnering, what's the point, right? If there's not enough of that ICP overlap, and believe me, I've seen some bad partnerships that have been done for the wrong reasons, and one like potential downstream M&A. So we partner with this big technology company because they make acquisitions, but we don't have the overlap in customers. So there's the technology doesn't fit into that you're selling to CIOs versus CMOs. that's a bit of a tough partnership, right? So transparency and trust, bringing these partners into the tent, having them be at revenue kickoff, sales kickoff, NPS, measuring NPS based on partner involved, partner not involved, which of our partners is our NPS higher, right? From an agency perspective, onboarding and working with our customers, do we have partners that have higher NPS, right? Do we have, Ed Eloqua is a great example with the Marquee Awards, right? The Marquee Awards that so coveted. How many of our award winners were working with partners, and what partners were they working with? So it's this making sure you have the right partners with the overlap, and also approach, right? Are they customer centric? Are they collaborative? It is there is this cultural fit, belief, trust. So I hope that answers a couple of the friction points that you guys have, and how to really better enable, better identify, better prioritize, and this making sure the sales team and the customer success organizations know the success stories of your partners as well. Your look at your best performing salespeople. Are they selling with partners, right? Those kinds of questions that you can ask.
Yeah. And these are all really great recommendations. Thanks, Jill. I think this is if we were to take that list and people were to apply it, consistently, I think they'd see a lot more productive partnerships, both in selecting them and enabling them, and getting impact and getting value for your customers, which I love. And then keeping that at the center. And speaking of high performing salespeople, you were a high performing salesperson for many, many years, but you've made a pretty significant career shift. And it seems like it's been intentional, like you sort of know where you wanted to go. But I'd be curious, as people think about the evolution of their own careers, and I know the year end and going into performance reviews is always kind of a moment for that kind of thinking about where you want to go next. What are some of your thoughts on how you kind of managed your own success and not been complacent in, saying, hey, I'm really good at this role, I'm going to stay in this role. You've been willing to take some risks too. What advice would you offer to people as they start to think about where they want to go?
What are they passionate about? Right? I wouldn't be successful if I wasn't like wildly passionate about, it is about the customer. I am so passionate about customer and customer value. And I'm also like, status quo, it doesn't sit well, right? And also this reading the market, understanding what are the shifts that are occurring in the way that industries work, in the way that people, in the way that channels are changing. Channels meaning like TikTok and Instagram. I know we're like in B2B primarily, but the consumer behavior influences the B2B behavior. For me, when something becomes a best practice, you need the next practice, right? Because if everybody's running the same playbook, when we saw this whole BDR, SDR, and I'm not against that, but when everybody is hiring truckloads of recent college graduates to be interruptive in terms of email, calls, LinkedIn, then it isn't as effective. So it's like, what's the next new thing? And from a pattern recognition perspective, I have seen this decade of the ecosystem, right? Jay McBain, brilliant. He probably has one of the best views because he has covered channel and seen the legacy transformation from channel to ecosystem. When I see people who I respect, like Jared Fuller, launching a media company, Partner Hacker, to truly be the community, the media company, to educate on this transformation, this evolution. When I see like Partner Hacker Handbook being created, when I see podcasts, and what I've done is I've done a lot of what I did before. I would listen to these podcasts with these really smart partnership ecosystem people, and then I would reach out to them and connect on LinkedIn, mentioning the podcast and something that I learned. And all of a sudden, in my stream of content, partnership people, ecosystem, and that kind of content starts appearing. When I see like partner ops as a function start to develop, I know that that's where the puck is going, and I want to go where the puck is going. I know that this is more of a longer term investment in me, in my brand, in my knowledge and expertise, but I'm not afraid to learn. Just like when I got into venture capital, John, there was so much to learn. It was so overwhelming, but I dove in, and I actually figured out after a period of time that wasn't the pond I wanted to swim in. Those weren't my people. Venture capitalists were not my people. That wasn't the conversation that I wanted to have. My people are go-to-market executives in high-growth companies, primarily B2B SaaS. And I just wasn't afraid to jump into a new pond and learn how to fish, learn how to swim.
Yeah, no, it's awesome, and just keep an eye on time. As we suspected, we've got more content than time. But just a quick last question from me. I mean, you were at Eloqua, and although it may not have been your area, you guys really pioneered, I think, the concept of community. And you mentioned community as part of your ecosystem. Who do you think's doing a great job right now? If you were to pick one or two examples of, wow, these guys really are nailing community across the board, both maybe in the MarTech sales tech side, as well as maybe on the enterprise side. I'm just curious what you're seeing there.
Yeah, companies that come to mind, one, Figma. When Figma has community-led approach, and then they get acquired by Adobe for $20 billion, something's going on there, right? Something's going on. Notion is another great example. Notion has created a marketplace for their customers, the creators of Notion templates, let's say. They've created an online marketplace for these content creators, their community members, to actually monetize, right? Monetize their contribution to other people who could use these templates. And guess what? Notion isn't taking a percent of any of the dollars. The dollars are going straight to the creators, straight to the community. And that creates this, I want to work with Notion, because Notion's trying to not make money directly off of me. They're trying to help me make money. And when you help other people make money, it comes back to you. And the network effect and the multiplier of creating this very vibrant ecosystem of passionate Notion users, that is spectacular, right? That's a moat. In terms of in B2B and MarTech, I love HubSpot. I love what they're doing. When you look at Scott Brinker, and that's someone, go look at what Scott Brinker is saying about ecosystem. Go look at what Scott Brinker is saying about partnerships. And when you have the company, huge company valued at billions and billions of dollars, now talking about a shift to community and really thinking about this community-led growth and really investing in both media, right? They bought a media company. They're building more media company within the organization. So I would say from a B2B marketing, I would say that HubSpot is the prime example. I mean, Salesforce is historically, everybody knows Salesforce. They invented this, like in SaaS, this ecosystem, and Trailblazers as a resource. And then, more on the ABM side, I would say the most partner friendly ABM company is really 6 Sense. They built, in fact, right now they have a CMO community. There's a East Coast time and a West Coast time. There are Slack groups. There are mini communities within that, and they're not trying to monetize, right? This isn't we're trying to, and there's no pitching, and there's a lot of trust that's been built up in that. So I would say 6 Sense is doing a really good job there too.
Awesome. Great. Well, Megan, any closing thoughts here? I don't know, we're a couple minutes over time here. It's been fantastic information. But yeah, anything to close with?
Just thank you, Jill. Really appreciate you helping us close out a year of sharing content and ideas with our community, our collective community. I think we're all sort of passionate about the same folks. So it's really been a pleasure to have you join us today and share kind of some really good things to think about where the puck will be next year, and probably already is.
Yeah. And I would just say anyone who's really like starting to get the light bulb moment of the aha or the oh crap, right? Oh my gosh, like go look at, like, I would say resources, super important. They help you be able to put together the business case to internally fight for dollars and headcount for this, to build trust internally. There's new vendors like Reveal and Crossbeam and PartnerTap. If you're looking at any partner technology, I would look at those, and they're competitive. So I'm naming all 3 of them. And they create a lot of great thought leadership content. There's Partnership Leaders, which is a community growing really rapidly for partner leaders. There's a Women in Partnerships community within that. There's Partner Hacker is a media. And if you want specific resources on a specific area of partnerships, ping me on LinkedIn, right? I'm more than happy to help people get educated so that they can really think about higher quality, ultimately revenue and expansion within, and then also from a customer acquisition cost, what are ways to lower that CAC?
Yeah, we'll repost those great, you provided some great resources. I put them in the chat, but this technology is a little bit newer. I think it pushes it over to LinkedIn and YouTube. If it doesn't, I'll repost it in LinkedIn. So those, and the resources you gave were fantastic. So yes, I agree with you. And if there are other questions, I think, what's the best way to get a hold of you, Jill? You said ping you, is it on LinkedIn?
Yeah, LinkedIn. No generic. I wouldn't expect anyone here to send anything generic, but tell me that you heard and saw on the B2B Fusion live stream, recorded version of it, and then we can connect and go from there. And I'll get a little more context of what specifically you're looking for, because now there is almost an overwhelming amount of resources, and I can help navigate you to what are the best resources based on what you're trying to learn.
Yeah, sounds good. And it's actually, you bring up a really good point. So our account-based Friday, I noticed that I've got my logo up here, but maybe the next one we take that down. But whether they refer, connect to you through Megan, myself, account-based Friday, just giving you some context, I think would be hugely helpful. And thank you for closing out the year with us. We start again, I think the second week of January. We've got some exciting guests teed up, and stay tuned, more on that as we get closer to the beginning of the new year. But thank you for investing time. And there's a number of people that are online here I could see on LinkedIn that stayed the entire time. So fantastic. So thank you for joining us.
I appreciate you all. I really do. Meg and John, we've known each other for decade plus, right?
True.
Almost 2 decades. So I really appreciate you and being able to bring this message to your audience, to your people.
2 decades. That's incredible.
There are people.
People. Yay!
There are people, and we're thankful for their continued attention and participation. And for letting us have fun bringing great messages to a great group of people. So happy Friday to everybody. And again, thank you, Jill.